Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Your magical kiss take me just so far. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Don't leave me like this, dangling from a star. You set me all aflame and it's so pleasing. It sure would be a shame if you were only teasing. So my love, before I go, turn the lights way down low and talk to me. Talk to me, talk to me. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome again to the Don McKeag Show. It is the 43rd edition of the Don McKeag Show. The single fastest hour on TV, especially on Thursday between 6 and 7. Isn't it nice to have, I have Ken Bukes with me here as my partner and producer, and it's so nice, Kenny, isn't it, to start the show as we always do with a nice little song and Dave McKenna playing in the back, gently asking people to call us, talk to me. And then in 5 seconds, I'm ranting about what, for the whole hour, we go right off the edge.
But it's your hour.
But it's my hour, and we're going to do it. And on this hour, ladies and gentlemen, I attempt to educate. I attempt to mediate, consolidate, coagulate, infuriate, postulate, infiltrate, cooperate, not cooperate. But I don't imitate anyone. I always start the shows now with a quote in the year 1526 by a former devout Roman Catholic priest from Germany, Martin Luther, who said, "Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expedience asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right?" There comes a time in all of our lives when we must decide whether or not to take a position, one or the other. The one is what's got us into the mess we're in right now. The other is to decide it's not about being safe, it's not about being popular, it's not about being, excuse me, politic. It's about a conscience, and it's about doing what's right and putting your foot into the ring instead of sitting in the grandstands, seeing things that you know are wrong and keeping your mouth shut. That's how we've got to where we've gotten. And greed has got us there. Cicero, who lived, well, this is the year 156 BC, just about 2,200 years ago, before Christ. Remember, 156 BC is before Christ came here. So there was no Christian religion, there was no 10 Commandments, and yet people were just as bad. We are walking in the shoes. We are a modern day walking in the shoes of the Roman Empire. They even called it the Holy Roman Empire after Christ, when the Roman Catholic Church and when it became a Christian kingdom. And it fell for the same reasons we are falling. It is not about me taking a position. It is about facts. It is about reading what's happening on a daily basis. It's looking at the leaders that we have in this country now who just are incompetent. They are. And the people running don't give us much option. That's what happened in Rome. They were saddled with emperors who were appointed, and then, of course, it became Caesars, and it became family-oriented. You had lunatics that were making decisions on all the people of Rome and Rome's kingdom. When they were at their strongest, a Roman citizen could go to any city in the known world and be safe, feel safe, because no one had the guts to ever harm a Roman citizen. That's how powerful their law was. They didn't mamby-pamby around. They had a death penalty, and let me tell you, the death penalty happened right then. You rape, or murder, or harm a Roman citizen, and you're dead. That's all. You're taken to court, but you're dead. That sends a message. That's been part of our problem, too, thanks to liberalism and liberalistic feel-good mentalities. Watch these TV shows. TV loaded with violence, loaded with murders and rapes of innocent young women. No death penalty. Families have to sit in court and see somebody get 12 years, maybe life, after not just a crime of passion. I can understand no death penalty when it comes to a drunken brawl in a bar or something where there's anger and rage. I can see it. Give them life. But when you see sadistic, horrible treatment of young people and old people who've done nothing wrong, and in fact, in many cases, were model citizens, and we think it's cruel and unusual punishment. We don't think abortion is cruel and unusual punishment. All you got to do is talk to the, Planned Parenthood. Now they sell baby pods. Never mind the time that when we first talked about that abortion was supposed to be used specifically for rape, incest, to save the mother's life. That's so far gone, it's not even funny. Why? Because that's how we have deteriorated. It isn't about a woman controlling her own body. I'm sorry. It's about selfishness, and it's about people wanting to control everything. We have now minority positions dictating our churches, our church doctrine. The Pope's been out here. I'm just appalled. I love the man. When he first was appointed, elected, I was overjoyed. And I still think he's a very good man, but I think he's just like the people we have in office. They are controlled by others with an agenda. And again, we have people today just don't want to even face the possibility of it. They just don't. But I wanted to get back to Cicero. Now, this is before Christ, and listen to what he said and what we are looking at now. The evil implanted in man by nature. See, this is before the 7 deadly sins, which I'm going to refer to today. Excuse me. He equates it to nature. The evil implanted in man by nature spreads so imperceptibly when the habit of wrongdoing is unchecked that he himself can set no limit to his shamelessness. In the case of Hillary Clinton, it's her shamelessness. A lie begets a lie, begets a lie, begets a lie, and yet she's still a candidate for the President of the United States. Proven to lie. Proven. That's why the country, when it becomes party politics, when it becomes greed, the country's deteriorate. Thomas Jefferson said, if you get 200 years out of a republic or a democracy, you're lucky. And this is history. And I know people don't want to hear it, and they just want to live for the day. They want to take all they can. There's the greed. Well, imagine, tonight I just decided I'm going to go right into, first, the Ten Commandments. Now remember, the Supreme Court building in Washington, on the facade, has the Ten Commandments up there. They have Moses up there. But we've deteriorated so much, thanks to liberal, feel-good, do-gooders who so many times haven't got a clue. And if the truth be known, many liberals just aren't happy people. Many of them, I've known so many of them in politics. I was a devoted John F. Kennedy Democrat. I believed in the Democratic Party. We're talking back, my first time to vote was in the 60s, John Kennedy. I'll tell you, it's nowhere near the party that it was. It's now socialism. But in those days, the Ten Commandments were a given. I'm not saying we followed them. I didn't. I'm not up here preaching. But I'm talking about, I knew and know today that the human being must have parameters, just like children need discipline. They need a whack on the bottom once in a while. None of this timeout baloney. It hasn't worked, and I'll tell you, it hasn't. But again, liberals never look at results. It's all about feelings. It's all about, oh, we've got to be kinder. We've got to be more understanding. Every time they do a television show whining about those people on death row, convicted wrongly, which I care about, never, though, by the way, do you see any of those people, ever notice they never talk about their background in the first place? They're found innocent, with the DNA, and I want them released. But they conveniently eliminate any discussion of what kind of a life were they living in the first place that put them in the position they were in. Very few. You don't see somebody 99% of the time that was living a 9-to-5 good family man life. Every now and then, yes, but not in general. But that doesn't matter to liberals. But have you ever seen a show about the recidivism, those who've been let out to kill and rape again and again? Never. Never, never, never. And there's so much more of that. How'd you like to have your son or daughter raped or murdered or maimed in an institution for the rest of their life, mentally gone, because that bird that did it was let out by a feel-good liberal committee of prison reformers? We are now going to let Syrians come in here. I swear this administration, Putin, is making this president look like what he really is, and that is an absolute incompetent. Gutless, a paper tiger, but he smiles nice. And of course, he's black, so that makes him politically correct, and you can't possibly criticize him. Just like Hillary. Doesn't matter what people have said about her. Doesn't matter how they've proven she and Bill Clinton lied. She even lied about her husband running around with many women before they were elected. Doesn't matter. She's a woman. And by God, we've got women in this country say they don't care what she is or what she does. It's time we had a woman president. The next time it'll be someone gay. I keep saying, I don't know what's with the Jewish population. We've never had a Jewish president. Isn't it your time? Maybe we could find a Jewish lesbian presidential candidate. That would fit the whole thing. You'd get 3 for 1. You'd get 3 for 1. Wouldn't that be wonderful, liberals? Getting back to the Supreme Court, which, of course, has been bought and paid for now in their last rulings. They are now the Supreme Court, which is supposed to, it's one thing to have the president not uphold the Constitution, which he's been proven to not have done time and time again. Hillary Clinton, of course, is going to definitely defeat the Second Amendment because, of course, our founding fathers, no one knew anything until our generation, and these people now leading America came. You know, we are the anointed ones because we know something that all the founding fathers and those afterwards didn't have a clue about. That's how arrogant this bunch is. That's how arrogant. Well, getting back to the building, the Supreme Court building, the doors going into the hearing room where the judges sit, on both doors are the 10 Commandments, or one or two of them etched into the door, along with pictures of Moses and other judges. Not important. I can't wait to see if we get more Democrats in there. Finally, they'll take minority positions. That's all they do. That's all we've got in leadership now is take minority positions. Why? Because the press is loaded with socialists. Because the college schools of journalism, by their own admission, are over 85% liberal-oriented. And that's how they interview presidents and prospective politicians. And these politicians just want to get reelected. I'm not saying they don't want, some want to do well and do right, but they sell their souls in the process. And by doing that, we all pay the price. But now let's look at what our wonderful enlightened culture did. Passed a law making it illegal for Plymouth or any other town, state, and of course it would be the federal government, to post or list the 10 Commandments on a public building. You can do it in a private building. But no on the public buildings. That, by the way, still, despite what the liberal press would tell us, we are still 73% in terms of polls, in terms of documents. 73% of today's existing 300 million, of course, we're not talking about 200 million that should be voting and the other 100 million that don't belong voting, but the Democratic liberals know they can milk them and get them to vote the way they want, so now many of them are voting illegally. You can't get a dump sticker without showing an ID, but you can sure vote. Insane? So now, even though it's 73% Christian United States of America, the other 27% dictates that we throw out and make it illegal to have the bases that are on the Supreme Court building, the 10 Commandments, thrown out. How'd they get away with that? Only one way, liberal Democrats, that's all. You're liberal Democrats. Now let's hear how horrible the 10 Commandments are to have on a public building. You walk into your town hall, your brand new town hall, or your brand new police station or fire station, or your $92 million high school. You can't have this because it is offensive. It's almost too offensive for me to read this. I get just, Kenny, don't you just get, I quiver at the thought that any population, any culture could have allowed this in the first place. Let's start with one. There are only 10. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. You shall have no other gods before me. That is, Kenny, that is pathetic. How could that possibly have ever gone so long? How? Tell me.
Well,
what were they thinking, ladies and gentlemen? I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt and out of the house of bondage, out of slavery, in other words. And you shall have no other gods before me. That is really offensive because, of course, that's eliminating any and all other gods. What do you think? I mean, I'm shocked.
I think right now that you're being just a little bit, just a tad facetious. Just a tad.
Just a tad?
Just a tad.
Oh, no, I'm dead serious.
But I know this much.
Yes.
Going back to my Sunday school days.
Sunday school? Oh!
Right after church, you had to be there for the 8 o'clock Mass on Sunday morning. The nuns made you sit in a row 4 or 5. And after
you had to follow rules, imagine.
And after that, you had to go into the basement, and you opened up the catechism.
Terrible.
And you were reading.
You mean you couldn't run out and eat 6 donuts and drink 4 quarts of milk and put on another 40 pounds or your already 200-pound body so that you could get home in Mommy's car and play on the computer?
I'm offended that you said 200-pound body.
All right, now this is the second one. Now you think the first one was bad, ladies and gentlemen. You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them nor serve them. For I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers on the children to the 3rd and 4th generations of those who hate me, but showing mercy to thousands to those who love me and keep my commandments. Now, I can understand young people. We don't have probably anybody watching, but these were different times, so this is not a true. You can find fault with this because this is what liberals do, too. They don't. That's what they've done on terms of the South. You know, they absolutely refuse to go back to the situation. And I don't mean to cut any slack to slavery, but to look at the whole system as it was. This is what history will do with our generation right now. They will look back at our time, and they will find how idiotic we were, and why America fell apart, just as Rome did. So I understand that. But what this basically says is, this is dealing with the pagan gods at the time, the Roman gods, Zeus and Hera, all of these different idols that were separate gods used for separate things. What the Christians did is they believed in a single God. They believed in Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying everyone has to do this. I'm not saying everyone has to agree with me or believe what I believe. What I'm saying is, if 73% of a country, of a town, and if this is what they believe in, then it used to be majority rule. It's no longer. Now, picture 100 people in a building, and 73 of the 100 believe one thing and want one thing. They, however, allow the other 27 to rule the day. That's what we basically have now, because you've elected liberal Democrat. Of course, it doesn't affect them personally. So many of them, they live in gated communities. Many of them are multi-millionaires, and yet the press absolutely picks on wealth only in dealing with Republicans. You'd think to talk to the mainstream press that there wasn't a wealthy Democrat in office. It's just incredible. But now let's get to the meat of the situation. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. I'm in trouble with this. My father never swore. My mother certainly didn't swear. There'd be my grandparents. And I'm not making excuses, but I went to the shipyard, and of course every other word was a swear. I was 17, 18 years old, but I've cursed, and I've asked forgiveness for that. I'm not proud of it. And I've cursed all too much. But I also know it's a forgiving God, and if you ask for forgiveness, I believe it's granted. It's not meant as a slur or a criticism of God, per se. But that's me saying what I hope. But I will accept the punishment. That's the difference. Because I believe in rules, regulations, and parameters of behavior. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord your God. It is you shall do no work. You, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your male servant, nor your female servant, nor your cattle, nor your stranger who is within your gates. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that is in them, and rested the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Look at today. Of course, public employees get all the holidays and get the weekends off. Isn't that interesting, huh, about government and why the Democrats have done so well? As a former Democrat, don't talk to me. I am absolutely non-political now. I can't stand either party because neither of those elected are honestly following what our founding fathers set up and what they based this government on, what they based this wonderful, the greatest country ever walked the face of this earth. With all our flaws and faults right now, we're so far ahead of any other country in this world, you can't even compare. You could add up all the other countries. Even liberal nitwit reporters can't come up with any evidence that even comes close to finding another nation that's done 1/1000th of what we do every year. And yet we've got college professors standing in front of vulnerable, impressionable young people telling them about the faults of their country. Elizabeth Warren paid $360,000 to be a professor at Harvard for 1 or 2 courses, and she's going to represent you working women. She's going to help you working families whose kids are loaded down with tuition, and she gets away with that? She lives in a big mansion and dumps all over corporate America. I said last week, every one of those public employees better hope to God that the investments of their town, that their pension fund is loaded with successful corporate companies. That's how capitalism works. They don't even know what capitalism is. But what has happened to this? Remember the Sabbath. This is greed. This is what greed and the desire for monetary and material things has done. The insidiousness of politicians. This is all about corporate America and other business interests wanting to be able to sell things 7 days a week. And they also got the unions in favor of it. But the reason the government is all in favor of it is because if you have people working 7 days a week, that means that there are taxes being paid, Social Security. Businesses are matching Social Security. unemployment taxes, all of those things that the government needs because they can't stop spending. That's why we owe trillions and trillions of dollars. Worse with this man than ever before, and he gets a pass. Now, what price have we paid? The deterioration of the family. Sundays used to be a time not only to go to church, but also to be together, to do things together, and to give the father and the mother. Of course, mothers didn't work that much. That's why mothers are working now, you know. Not because of the National Organization of Women who dumped all over men because they, you know, women are stupid if they aren't working, if they aren't equal to men. Staying home and bringing up your children is a stupid thing to do, a weak thing to do. That's what they sold all of you women, not all of you, but a lot of you, and that's changed now. A lot of corporate-oriented women have dropped out of that world and come back to their children. I remember Jacqueline Kennedy, of course, you'll never see this published very often, if at all, but one of her statements was, you know, when you messed up how you've brought up your children, nothing else you do really matters. Now, Jacqueline Kennedy, of course, was very wealthy, came from the elite. She didn't have to work. She didn't have, I understand that. But she had her act together, and you look at how her children were brought up and how her grandchildren are. And then look at some of the other Kennedys who weren't brought up that way, like many other people out there. But that doesn't matter because, you see, that's against the laissez-faire, liberal, do what you feel like doing, anything goes mentality. So we now have seen a big part of the deterioration in this country come specifically from that one thing, 7 days open. And they got it because now they say, oh, the women, people have to work. They need the money. Why do they need the money? Because the government taxes them so much. You need to work harder because you can't get by on the normal 6 day a week. But remember, those that have supported it, and they were Democrats, those that are in, they're police officers. Now police officers have a little different, and so do fire people. Some days they work 3 weeks on or whatever, 7 days on and 4 days off, though. But a police officer sometimes has to work overtime, but it's always made up. Or they have details. Not teachers. I think teachers, I was a teacher 14 years, 12 years, 13 years, I don't know what it was. Loved it. I keep saying this. I worked in the summers, I expected to. I didn't expect to make big money. I didn't expect to retire in my 50s with 75 and 80 grand. Don't tell me that they're not getting that. They are, especially administrators. Too darn much money, period. And then to be able to retire early on top of it after you're only working half a year? I can't stop zinging because it is a disgrace today what public employees, what the kind of life they have, which follows the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not work on Sunday, and you hear them whine, boy. You ever ask a teacher to work Saturdays? Now, I don't mean there aren't great teachers who would do that in a minute, but only under conditions and only if the union allowed it. But you see, I'm harsh and I'm unkind. Why are you always picking on teachers? I'm picking on them because it's wrong. That's why. It's a double standard. And proof of it is the reason that the whole educational system is failing is because politicians know that everyone that runs always is going to spend more money on education to get the women's vote, especially. Because the poor women are working so hard, they now have to trust the schools to do what they know they can't do with their family, their kids, because they don't have time. They're exhausted when they get home. It's a whole different world. So that is now the ultimate, is to harm those people going to church. Because guess what? A lot of mothers who, in my day, would have been home taking their kids to church. They're working Sundays now. I was in the restaurant business. I was open Sundays. Why? I needed to be, but I would have loved to have closed, but I couldn't afford to, and my employees needed the money. So you can call me a hypocrite. No, that's called what you have to do to get along in this changed world. And you hear it from anybody? Do you ever hear anybody? I think that we ought to, start having schools totally changed. I think the days should be longer to adjust to what the working mothers need. Oh no, you can't touch the government employee schedule. You can't change. The businessmen in Plymouth, I had restaurants down the Cape. You think the schools or colleges would ever stay and do what's the right thing, and that is don't start college till today, October 1st. Let the kids be working when there's money out there, there's tourists, there's people. Those kids want to make money. There's great kids out there that want to work. They used to come crying to me because some nitwit college, they don't even give them till Labor Day anymore, or the merchants. So those kids now, they get out in May when there's no business. But by God, you liberals, you little teachers, you pro-this, you want everybody to change for you. You want everything to go to you. Everybody else is supposed to be flexible except you. So now, I'm straying around it, but what I'm saying is now, what have we lost by the fact that families have deserted church? I know what we've done. We've done just what the left wants. We have weakened the strength of the Christian world in the United States. Less and less kids going to church and less parents, by design. And who wins? The government and corporate America. You don't have to like it. It's the truth. Kenny, did you want to weigh in here?
Well, I get a couple of observations, but I'm beginning to wonder if maybe there might be a liberal hiding behind. Is there one down on the floor?
I don't care where they are.
Because somebody is pulling that microphone off you.
Oh dear, is that messing up our?
Well, no, I made the correction to make sure that you don't go away.
No, you know what it is? I haven't wrapped it around my belly button like I usually do.
No, you don't
I've got lint in my belly button. That's the problem.
You don't need to get undressed on television, but it's just that the microphone was moving down.
Well, I did not know.
And what I wanted to do is, at some point, you have to let everybody know the status of the book signings and
well, I'm going to get to that. I was going to start with it, but yes.
I thought you were going off somewhere else, and that's
well, I am rolling because I think this is important, but I'm almost done. I'm down to 6, and it'll be 4 more, and then I'm going to talk about my wonderful new book.
But see, I'm not the one that's going to criticize you. I mean,
I don't care who criticizes me. Don't you get that?
Well,
I'm not on here to be popular. I'm on here to be respected.
This is just a little bitty old cable show. This is nothing.
I understand.
But on YouTube, this is
well, on
huge.
YouTube, that's great. But YouTube doesn't care about my book. So, I mean, I'm going to get through these 10 commandments, which, again, you can't probably, I'm sure the enlightened educational community wouldn't allow this to be taught in school. But you can bring Muslims in and tell the kids how, you can have them have praying classes in the public schools. But, of course, heaven forbid you have a Christmas celebration in a public building. So
I don't want to light you up.
Yes.
What I want to say is that the events of today, this morning,
yes,
in Seattle, it has been hinted. No one is willing to confirm it, but it has been hinted it was a religious...
Christian, I'm sure, right?
It was all about religion.
Yep.
Before he executed...
I understand the killer asked everyone he shot
what their religion was.
And what is really nice, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you liberals once again are happy with your party and your president and the philosophy. Now, they only had one security guard, and guess what?
He didn't have a gun.
Didn't have a gun because the liberals out there they want a gun-free area, except for the criminal. And, of course, this is the liberal mantra about passing gun control laws. Yeah, gun control, but this guy, he didn't buy this mail order. No. This guy would have a gun because you can go and get guns, and that will never stop.
No.
But heaven forbid you talk facts, Kenny. But can I please get back to finishing this?
I'm sorry.
All right.
I'm going to go back into my little room.
Yes, and don't come out again.
You call me when you want me.
All right, we'll finish this up because it's important. And as I say, where do you hear this? And if you don't go to church, you don't hear your priest. You don't hear your minister. And churches are closing. Attendance is way down. Have we gained from that, you liberals? I guess so. It's a better world because we're kind of now. Let other religions have equal time. And, of course, they know they don't get equal time now. Minority positions rule the roost. The gay community has set the rules on marriage. The majority hasn't got a say. It's unkind. Civil unions for people of same sex wasn't good enough. I've said this before. I was in the restaurant business. I have multiple gay friends over 40 years, dear friends, many of them in the restaurant business and in the artistic, very talented musicians. Several. Now, I'm sure they've changed because, of course, you got to go along to get along. But we're talking 30 years ago. Never once has this idiot box and the people who are running the wonderful political expert close to the community needs and beliefs, never once have they ever had any gay men on, like the men I knew, who did not believe in gay marriage. There were many, many, many men, and I suspect there are still some. They were perfectly content with having civil unions where legally, that was what the whole, remember that was the whole open the door, get your foot in the door, and then the rhetoric changed when these, again, activists, people who had to have their way, had to prove they could dictate to the majority. Never once did you see a show, just like I mentioned, you never see a show done by the communication department on those thousands and thousands of people right now on the street that have been let out. They talked about, I read not long ago, there's something like over 100,000 convicted murderers on the street who were found guilty and given life for a murder, and they're back on the street. Oh, we've got to give them a chance. And many have returned back after killing again. Every now and then they'll do a show about it, but it's always never to the point of why were they on the street in the first place. Go out to San Francisco, that beautiful girl, murdered by that guy who was deported 5 times. Never mind 5 times. How about the second time throwing him in the slammer? Not this feel-good Democratic Socialist Party. Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God is giving you. Go to the mall and see how kids speak to their mother today. Go to the beach. I'm sorry to be so down, but I mean, this is what we had our legal experts, our Supreme Court, who sits under the 10 Commandments and then allows a law to be passed that forbids the 10 Commandments be on a public building, even though the building they're in has it in 3 different places. But they are the smart ones, and you vote for them. Here's a horrible one, number 6, you shall not murder. Now remember how terrible to have this posted on a public building. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not murder. You shall not commit adultery. Oh, we couldn't possibly have that today. Imagine our kids, if they couldn't have sex when they were 14, what would they do? Oh, my word. Planned Parenthood. When I was running for state rep in the year 2000, my word, we've got a caller?
Jeff is on the phone.
Well, all right. We'll get right to him. Imagine, ladies and gentlemen, I'm running in 2000 for state rep. Of course, I was defeated. I ran as a Republican. I go into the Planned Parenthood office, a nice young girl up there, and on the counter is a prophylactics and a little sign. This month, flavor, orange. I don't know anything about that. That's perfectly okay, liberals, all right? Encourage the kids. I mean, safe sex. And, of course, then there was the beautiful thing done by Planned Parenthood, which wanted 14, 15, 16-year-old girls who became pregnant to be able to have an abortion without telling their parents. I don't care whether the parents aren't doing their job, whether they're alcoholic or druggies. When the parent is treated like that, and you don't find that offensive. I haven't heard that revisited in any of the media. I don't understand it. Why isn't that brought back up? Never mind the baby parts. This was their idea, now 20 years ago, probably. You agree with it, I guess? You shall not steal. Oh, crying out loud. We can't possibly. I mean, that's, after all, we've got illegals here stealing places blind, and, of course, they get brought to court. I love this. I had this happen to me when I was in business, and the judge, the wonderful robed people, and a lot of them do wonderful jobs, but I'll tell you. I got a settlement, and I was supposed to get $30 a week for like 2 years. And the person disappeared 4 days later. And do you think I ever got a nickel? No. But it's a businessman. I can afford it. We don't care about the businessman. So that's why we shouldn't have that posted on a public building, because, after all, that's unkind. You find somebody stealing, they need to steal. They're poor. They're here in this country. They've got babies. Finally, another one. You shall not bear false witness against your neighbor, meaning you can't lie. You're not supposed to lie, like in business, like when you run for politics. How many times in your lifetime, I'm in my 70s, how many times has a politician lied, been found to be lying, and yet never, ever has to get thrown out? You can't throw them out. Now you can't even fire people that are found lying through their teeth. So that one shouldn't be on a public building. Thou shalt not lie, in other words, about whether you paid your taxes, or whether you cheated. And then finally, you shall not covet your neighbor's house, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife, nor his male servant, nor his female servant, nor his ox, nor his donkey, nor anything that is your neighbor's. That's the end of the 10, and that's terrible. You should be able to covet. You should absolutely want your neighbor's wife and cheat, steal your neighbor's livestock. So I'm glad that the liberals and you liberal Democrats that just see nothing wrong went along with the people who voted to make sure that here in Plymouth, where it all started, we can't have the 10 Commandments on any public building. 775 WXTK. That's my radio show, folks. I did that on purpose. Now, what do we have here with this Jeff? Are you there?
Donald McKeag, I am here. Hello, Don.
Hello.
How are you?
How are you?
I'm okay. I called a couple of weeks ago or sometime during the summer.
Yes, and I was very glad, if you remember, to hear your call, and I'll be so interested to hear your take on my latest rampage.
Well, I want to preface by saying, no matter what I, believe or disbelieve about what you say, I really do get a kick out of your show, don't I?
Well, that is wonderful. That's what I also want to be entertaining, so thank you, Jess.
But, I do sort of disagree with you on a couple of points.
Oh, I'm sure. That's fine.
I'm disappointed that you didn't read anything from Deuteronomy. Well, what the heck, man? You should have read Deuteronomy 22, verses 28, 29. If a man meets a virgin who is not betrothed and rapes her, and they are found, then the man who lay with her shall give to the father of the young woman 50 shekels of silver, and she shall be his wife, because he has raped her. He may not divorce her all his days. I'm kind of disappointed you didn't read that one.
Oh, I love it.
We should have that one.
You know what? In all due respect, I have never professed to being a biblical, knowledgeable person, and I do not suggest, as I said, the times were different. There were many, many laws and practices done under the Christian mantra that were wrong. But I'm just saying that what bothers me, again, in all due respect, is the big picture is what I'm looking at here. I'm looking at 2015.
Right.
And I'm looking at the total conglomerate of beliefs of liberals and where we are directly because of liberal policies, and are people happy with the results? I'm not looking to find flaws in my argument or flaws in the Bible or flaws. I'm saying, does it make any sense? Is it right for a Supreme Court of the United States to be sitting in a building that has the Ten Commandments on and then feels their knowledge to be so superior to the, never mind going back to 2,000 years ago, I'm talking about going back to the 1770s. Right. And they have the unmitigated arrogance to think that their ideas of how our society should operate have been superior to what I grew up with in the 50s. Right. That's my point. Anybody can point a finger, but I'm talking about looking at the total package. As I mentioned about these wrongly convicted, death row. First of all, the number is so minute compared to the numbers that I quoted of those who, by liberal policies and liberal nitwits sitting in judgment, didn't care about the victims, didn't care about the victims' families, and felt it okay to turn loose convicted rapists and murderers, Jen.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not sure. Are you implying that the Supreme Court has maybe forgotten that we have a sort of Christian origin to the nation?
Absolutely. I'm not just suggesting. I'm stating it. When you take 73% of the population,
right, and find out that they're Christian, well,
and you don't represent their beliefs over minority. I'm not saying to eliminate a minority position, right, but I'm saying when you choose to take the minority position in terms of legalities and pass laws that basically eliminate the majority, where are we going with that?
Well, what I find, though, interesting is that some of the most interesting and intelligent critics of Christianity and religion were the Founding Fathers. I'm sure you know the Treaty of Tripoli, which the Founding Fathers wrote in a diplomatic agreement with the Ottoman Empire. In Article 11, John Adams, the second president of the United States, writes, "As the government of the United States of America is not, in any sense, founded on the Christian religion, as it has in itself no character of enmity against the laws, religion, or tranquility of the Muslims, and as the said states never entered into any war or active hostility, it is declared by the parties that no pretext arising from religious opinions shall ever produce an interruption of the harmony existing between the two countries." Now let's go to Thomas Jefferson, shall we? Millions of innocent men, women, and children since the introduction of Christianity have been burnt, tortured, fired, and imprisoned, yet we have not advanced 1 inch toward uniformity. That was Thomas Jefferson in his notes on Virginia in 1782.
Well, just so long as you know that I'm not in disagreement, and I said it, I thought that I did not in any way want to suggest that Christianity was infallible. In fact, that's why I read Martin Luther's statement, but let's not forget the Spanish Inquisition and the horrible treatments by Christians of the top in the church. So, I mean, Isabel of Castile, you know, and Ferdinand, who sent Christopher Columbus over here, she was one of the absolute worst, and yet she was a great queen in some ways, but she was absolutely insane when it came to the Spanish Inquisition's treatment of fellow Spaniards. So,
yes. Yes.
I mean, I don't negate what you're pointing out because we're talking about people, but what I'm talking about, I hope, is people looking at, despite its flaws, we are still a Christian-based country, and that Christian beliefs, by and large, and a belief in God, we even put it on our monetary exchange, in God we trust, and now we yield often to atheists and agnostics. It's not about giving them a right to express their viewpoint with the First Amendment. It's now allowing them to pass laws and having these nitwits that represent supposedly the majority, they now make concessions to minorities. And to me, it is absolutely proven to be trouble.
But what I find problematic about that, Don, is that you say that we are Christian-based, but of course the Founding Fathers, Jefferson, Adams, Washington, Benjamin Franklin, were not Christians. They were deists, which meant they believed in a non-personal God who didn't interfere with human affairs. In fact, Thomas Jefferson even published his own version of the Bible, which edited out from the Gospels all of the supernatural claims that the Gospel writers wrote.
My God, now excuse me, you should be a professor in front of kids. Really, I mean that. I'm impressed. I am very impressed, and I appreciate exactly what you're saying. And excuse me, I did not, but I'm just saying, once again, I want to clarify, people are people, and these, we're almost out of time.
Oh, damn it. Well, Don,
I've got to let you go because I've got to...
you, and I hope to make one of your book signings, but thanks so much for allowing me to...
Oh, you kidding? You do call anytime, and I'm sorry that I had to finish that 10. I would give you more time, and I really do. I mean it. I enjoy it. And forgive me if I've talked over you or haven't let you, but I've got to use the last minute and a half.
No problem.
Call again. Thank you, Jess, very much. Jeff. It's Jeff. I'm sorry. Now, the last thing, ladies and gentlemen, is to mention that I have written a book. So if you listen to the drivel, the book is a memoir, however, and it's not political. Well, there's some political things. And ironically, those that know me, I was a very good friend. I lived in Hyannisport in the book. I was friendly with my good friend, dear friend, Teddy Kennedy, who were going politically. I did not, I was not happy with what was accomplished in '68 in regards to immigration. But there are going to be at Baxter's Boathouse on Thursday, a week from today, from 4 to 6. There will be a book signing. There will be a book signing the following day, Friday, the 9th, at the Flying Bridge restaurant that I used to own. And I just talked to a good friend of mine, a doctor who wants to have a signing at the Rye Tavern. And we haven't hit a date, and I'll let you know that. But we are out of here. So thanks a lot. God bless you. And just keep thinking, keep helping. Take a stand, will you please? Somebody has to. And have a wonderful weekend. Thanks very much for watching. Kenny, thank you too very much. Good night.